The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of the dusty trading post. And when the door swung open, Catherine Morrison stepped down into the blazing New Mexico heat with nothing but a worn leather satchel, a determination that had carried her 2,000 miles from Boston, and a heart full of hope that somewhere in this wild, untamed territory she would finally discover what had been missing from her carefully ordered life. The year was 1878, and Santa Fe was a town caught between two worlds, where Spanish architecture stood alongside rough timber buildings, where wealthy ranchers rubbed shoulders with prospectors and drifters, and where a woman traveling alone drew curious stares from every direction. Catherine felt those eyes on her as she brushed the red dust from her navy traveling dress, but she lifted her chin and walked toward the trading post with steady steps. She had not come this far to falter now. Inside, the air was cooler and smelled of leather, tobacco, and coffee. A woman behind the counter looked up from her ledger, her weathered face breaking into a welcoming smile that eased some of the tension Catherine had been carrying in her shoulders since leaving the last way station 3 days ago. "Welcome to Santa Fe," the woman said, wiping her hands on her apron. "You look like you could use some water and a place to sit. Name is Margaret Hensley. My husband and I run this place." Catherine accepted the tin cup of water gratefully, drinking deeply before she responded. "Catherine Morrison, I appreciate the kindness. I've been traveling for nearly 3 weeks." 3 weeks, Margaret repeated, her eyebrows rising. "That is quite a journey. What brings a lady like yourself all the way out here? Family?" "No." Catherine set down the cup and met the older woman's gaze directly. "I came looking for something different, something real. Back in Boston, my life was all planned out, every hour scheduled, every expectation laid out like a map I had no say in drawing. I was supposed to marry a banker's son, run a household, host dinner parties, and never once ask if there might be something more to life than polished silver and calling cards." Margaret's smile widened. "And so you ran." "I left," Catherine corrected, though there was a hint of humor in her voice now. "There is a difference. I told my parents I was going to visit my aunt in Philadelphia. Instead, I bought a ticket west and kept going until I felt like I could breathe again." "Well, you can certainly breathe out here. Sometimes that is all there is, dust and air and sky." Margaret leaned against the counter, studying Catherine with an assessing look that was not unkind. "But I will warn you, miss, this territory is not forgiving. It is beautiful and terrible in equal measure, and it will test you in ways Boston never did." "Good," Catherine said simply. "I want to be tested. I want to know what I am capable of when there is no one telling me who I should be." Margaret laughed at that, a rich sound that filled the trading post. "I like you. You have got spirit. Tell you what, I know a family about 10 miles north of here, the Hendersons. They have a ranch, and they have been looking for someone to help with their children, teaching them reading and writing. The pay would not be much, but you would have room and board and honest work. Would that interest you?" Catherine felt something loosen in her chest, a knot of anxiety she had been carrying since she stepped off the train in Kansas City. "Yes, that would interest me very much." "Good. There is a man who rides through here most days to pick up supplies. I will send word with him. His name is Cole Garrison, and he works for the Hendersons. Fine man, honest as they come." Margaret paused, then added with a knowing look, "Single, too, if you're wondering." Catherine felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I am not looking for a husband, Mrs. Hensley. I just escaped that particular trap." "I did not say husband," Margaret replied with a wink. "I just said single. But you will see what I mean when you meet him. Cole is the kind of man who makes his own way in the world, and he does not suffer fools. You two might get along just fine." The conversation shifted to practical matters after that. Arrangements for Catherine to stay in the small room above the trading post until Cole Garrison could take her out to the Henderson ranch, and by the time the sun began to sink toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that Catherine had never seen in Boston, she felt something she had not felt in years. She felt alive. The next morning arrived with a coolness that would burn off by midday, and Catherine was helping Margaret sort through a shipment of canned goods when she heard the sound of hooves outside. Through the window, she saw a man dismount from a bay horse with the kind of easy grace that spoke of years in the saddle. He was tall, lean, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that needed cutting, and when he pushed through the door of the trading post, his gray eyes swept the room with the alert wariness of someone who had learned not to take anything for granted. "Morning, Margaret," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in Catherine's chest. "Got a list from Mrs. Henderson." "Morning, Cole." Margaret took the paper he offered and then gestured toward Catherine. "Before we get to that, I want you to meet someone. This is Catherine Morrison. She arrived yesterday from Boston, and she is interested in that teaching position at the Henderson place." Cole's gaze shifted to Catherine, and she felt the full weight of his attention. It was not dismissive or presumptuous, but rather appraising, as though he were trying to take her measure in the same way he might assess a horse or judge the weather. Catherine met his eyes without flinching, and after a long moment the corner of his mouth twitched upward in something that might have been approval. "Boston is a long way from here," he said finally. "What made you leave?" Catherine could have given him the polite answer, the one she had rehearsed in her mind during all those long stagecoach rides. Instead, she found herself telling the truth. "I was suffocating there. Every day was the same, every choice already made for me. I needed to find out who I was when no one was watching, when there were no expectations pressing down on me. So I came west." Cole nodded slowly, as though her answer had confirmed something he had already suspected. "It is not easy out here. The work is hard, the weather can be brutal, and sometimes the loneliness is worse than either of those things. You think you can handle that?" "I think I will never know unless I try," Catherine replied. "And I would rather try and fail than spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been." Something shifted in Cole's expression, a softening around the eyes that made him look younger despite the lines the sun had carved into his face. "Fair enough. I will take you out to the ranch this afternoon if you're ready. Mrs. Henderson will want to meet you herself before any decisions are made." "But if Margaret vouches for you, that carries weight." "I do vouch for her," Margaret said firmly. "She has got courage, and that counts for a lot out here." The ride to the Henderson ranch took nearly 2 hours, and Catherine spent most of that time trying not to stare at the landscape that unfolded around them. The land here was nothing like the green hills and orderly farms of New England. It was vast and open, dotted with scrub brush and juniper trees, with mesas rising in the distance like ancient monuments. The sky seemed to go on forever, an endless blue dome that made her feel both insignificant and exhilarated at the same time. Cole rode slightly ahead, his posture relaxed but alert, and Catherine found herself studying him when she thought he was not paying attention. There was something about him that drew her interest, something beyond his obvious competence in this harsh environment. He moved through the world with a quiet confidence that spoke of a man who knew his own worth and did not need anyone else to validate it. It was so different from the men she had known in Boston, with their carefully cultivated manners and their constant need for approval and advancement. "How long have you worked for the Hendersons?" Catherine asked, partly to break the silence and partly because she genuinely wanted to know. 5 years, Cole replied without turning around. "Came here after the war ended. I was looking for work in a place where the past did not matter as much as what you could do with your hands and your head. Tom Henderson gave me a chance when a lot of folks would not have, and I have been with him ever since." "The war," Catherine repeated softly. She had been just a child during those years, sheltered from the worst of it by her father's money and connections. "That must have been terrible." "It was." Cole's voice was flat, devoid of emotion, but Catherine heard the weight behind those 2 words. "But it taught me what matters and what does not. Out here, no one cares what uniform you wore or which side you fought for. They care if you are honest, if you work hard, and if you stand by your word. That is a kind of freedom I never had before." Catherine understood that more than he might have guessed. "That is what I am looking for," she said, "that kind of freedom." Cole glanced back at her then, and for the first time since they had met, he smiled. It was a small smile, almost hesitant, but it transformed his face. Then maybe you came to the right place. The Henderson Ranch was more substantial than Catherine had expected, a sprawling adobe house with a wide porch and several outbuildings that spoke of prosperity and hard work. Children's voices rang out from somewhere behind the house, high and bright with laughter, and as Cole helped Catherine down from her horse, a woman emerged from the front door, wiping flour from her hands. Sarah Henderson was in her early 40s, with kind eyes and a practical air about her that immediately put Catherine at ease. She looked Catherine over with the same assessing gaze Cole had used, but there was warmth beneath it. "So you are the teacher Margaret told us about. Come inside and let us talk. Cole, would you mind taking your horse to the stable?" "Yes, ma'am," Cole said, and led both animals away. Inside, the house was cool and comfortable, furnished simply but with care. Sarah poured 2 glasses of lemonade and gestured for Catherine to sit at the kitchen table. "Margaret says you came all the way from Boston. That is quite a journey for a teaching position." "I did not come just for the position," Catherine admitted. "I came because I needed to change my life, and this seemed like the place to do it." Sarah's lips curved into a knowing smile. "I understand that. I came out here 20 years ago for similar reasons, though in my case, I was following Tom after we married. But I know what it is like to leave everything familiar behind and start fresh. It is terrifying and wonderful at the same time." "Exactly," Catherine said, relieved to be understood. "I know I have a lot to learn about this place, about how things work out here, but I am a good teacher. I have been tutoring children in Boston for years, and I love helping them discover the world through books and learning." "We have 3 children," Sarah said. "Emma is 10, Jacob is 8, and little Lily just turned 6. They are good kids, but they are wild as colts and twice as stubborn. They need structure and education, but they also need someone who will not try to break their spirit. This land requires strength and independence, and I want my children to have both." "I would never try to break anyone's spirit," Catherine said quietly. "That is exactly what I'm running from." Sarah studied her for a long moment and then nodded. "All right. The job is yours if you want it. You will have a room in the house, meals with the family, and $20 a month. You will teach the children reading, writing, arithmetic, and whatever else you think they should know. In return, I expect you to treat them with kindness and respect, and to understand that life on a ranch means everyone pitches in when needed. Can you do that?" "Yes," Catherine said without hesitation. "I can do that." "Good." Sarah extended her hand, and Catherine shook it, feeling the calluses that came from years of hard work. "Welcome to the family, Catherine Morrison." The first week at the Henderson Ranch passed in a blur of activity and adjustment. Catherine quickly learned that life here bore no resemblance to the orderly routine she had known in Boston. The children woke at dawn and often had chores to complete before breakfast. Lessons had to be fitted around the needs of the ranch, which meant flexibility and patience. Emma, the eldest, was bright and hungry for knowledge, devouring every book Catherine put in front of her. Jacob was more restless, his attention constantly drawn to the outdoors, but he had a quick mind when Catherine found ways to make learning feel like an adventure. Little Lily was a whirlwind of energy and affection, climbing into Catherine's lap at every opportunity and asking endless questions about everything from the stars to why the sky was blue. Catherine discovered that she loved teaching in this environment where learning felt immediate and relevant. When Jacob struggled with arithmetic, she took him outside and taught him to count fence posts and calculate the number of boards needed to repair the barn. When Emma wanted to know about geography, Catherine drew maps in the dirt and helped her understand where New Mexico sat in relation to the rest of the country. And when Lily asked about letters, Catherine wrote them in the dust on the porch railing and let the little girl trace them with her finger until she knew them by heart. But it was not just the children who occupied Catherine's thoughts during those first days. Cole Garrison was a constant presence on the ranch, always working, always busy with some task that needed doing. Catherine found herself watching him more than she should have, noticing the way he handled the horses with gentle firmness, the way he spoke to Tom Henderson with respect but not deference, the way his eyes crinkled when one of the children made him laugh. He was different from any man she had ever known. There was no artifice about him, no pretension. He was exactly who he appeared to be, no more and no less, and Catherine found that deeply attractive in ways she had not anticipated. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after her arrival, Catherine was sitting on the porch after dinner, enjoying the cool air that came with sunset, when Cole emerged from the barn and walked toward the house. He paused when he saw her, as though debating whether to continue or turn away, and then he climbed the steps and leaned against the porch railing a few feet away. "Evening," he said. "Evening," Catherine replied, setting down the book she had been reading. "The children wore me out today. Jacob found a lizard and insisted we study its anatomy. Lily wanted to know if lizards had feelings. Emma wanted to know the Latin name for every reptile in North America." Cole's mouth quirked. "Sounds like a typical day with those three. You handling it all right?" "Better than all right," Catherine said honestly. "I love it. Every day is different, and I feel like I am actually making a difference in their lives. That is something I never felt back home." Cole was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the last light was fading. "Margaret mentioned you left someone behind in Boston. A banker's son," she said. Catherine felt a flicker of surprise that Margaret had shared that detail, but she did not mind. "His name was Richard. Our fathers arranged the match. He was perfectly pleasant, perfectly appropriate, and perfectly boring. I think he saw me as another acquisition, something to display at parties and then forget about the rest of the time. I could not imagine spending my life with someone who never once asked me what I wanted or who I dreamed of becoming." "What do you dream of becoming?" Cole asked, turning to look at her directly. It was such a simple question, but no one had ever asked her that before. Catherine took a moment to consider her answer, wanting to be truthful. "I do not know yet. That is part of why I came here. I want to discover what I'm capable of when I'm not trying to fit into someone else's mold. I want to be someone who makes her own choices, lives her own life, and does not apologize for it." "That is a good dream," Cole said quietly. "Not an easy one, but a good one." "What about you?" Catherine asked, emboldened by his openness. "What do you dream of?" Cole's expression became more guarded, and for a moment Catherine thought he would not answer. Then he said, "I dream of having a place of my own someday. Not a big spread, just enough land to run some cattle, build a house, make something that lasts. I dream of waking up every morning and knowing that the work I do matters, that I'm building something real." He paused, then added so softly she almost missed it, "And maybe having someone to share it with, if I am lucky enough to find the right person." The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibilities. Catherine's heart was beating faster than it should have been, and she found herself leaning slightly toward him, drawn by something she could not name. "That sounds like a good dream, too." Cole pushed away from the railing, and for a moment his hand brushed against hers where it rested on the arm of her chair. The contact was brief, almost accidental, but it sent a jolt of awareness through Catherine's entire body. "I should get back to work. Still have some things to finish before I turn in. Good night, Catherine." "Good night, Cole." She watched him walk away, his tall frame silhouetted against the darkening sky, and knew with absolute certainty that something had shifted between them. It was subtle, barely acknowledged, but it was there. A connection forming like a thread being spun between 2 points. Catherine was not sure what it meant or where it would lead, but for the first time since leaving Boston, she felt her heart opening to possibilities she had never allowed herself to consider before. The summer heat intensified as June gave way to July, and the rhythm of ranch life became second nature to Catherine. She woke before dawn, helped Sarah with breakfast, taught the children through the morning hours, and then spent her afternoons helping with whatever needed doing, whether that was mending clothes, tending the vegetable garden, or preserving fruit for the winter. The work was physically demanding in ways her Boston life had never been, but she found satisfaction in the ache of tired muscles and the tangible results of her labor. And through it all, she was increasingly aware of Cole. They did not spend much time alone together. The ranch kept everyone busy, and propriety dictated a certain distance between an unmarried man and woman, even on the frontier. But there were moments, small and fleeting, that seemed to carry more weight than they should have. A shared glance across the dinner table when Jacob said something funny. Cole holding the door for her when her arms were full of laundry. The way he always seemed to know when she was struggling with something and would quietly step in to help without making her feel incapable. Sarah noticed, of course. One afternoon when the two women were alone in the kitchen, she said casually, "Cole has been smiling more since you arrived." Catherine nearly dropped the plate she was washing. "I am sure that is coincidence." "I am sure it is not," Sarah replied with a knowing look. "Cole is a good man, Catherine. He has been through a lot, lost more than most people could bear, and he came out of it with his integrity intact. That is rare. If he is drawn to you, you could do a lot worse." Catherine's hands stilled in the soapy water. "What did he lose?" Sarah hesitated as though weighing how much to share. "That is his story to tell, not mine. But I will say this. He knows what it is like to have everything taken away, and he knows what it is like to build yourself back up from nothing. Maybe that is why he understands you better than you realize." Those words stayed with Catherine as the days passed, adding another layer to her growing fascination with Cole Garrison. She found herself wanting to know his story, to understand what had shaped him into the man he was, but she did not want to pry, did not want to push him into sharing something he was not ready to reveal. So she waited and watched and felt the connection between them strengthen with every passing day. The opportunity came unexpectedly one Saturday afternoon in late July. Tom Henderson had taken the children into Santa Fe for supplies and to give Sarah a break, and Catherine had volunteered to stay behind to catch up on lesson planning. She was sitting under a cottonwood tree near the creek that ran through the property, books and papers spread around her, when she heard footsteps approaching. Cole stood a few feet away, hat in hand, looking uncertain in a way she had never seen before. "I do not mean to disturb you." "You are not disturbing me," Catherine said quickly, gathering her papers to make room. "Please, sit if you would like." He lowered himself to the ground with that same easy grace she had noticed the first day they met. His long legs stretched out in front of him. For a moment neither of them spoke. The only sounds the gentle rush of water over stones and the rustle of leaves overhead. "Sarah told me you asked about my past," Cole said finally. Catherine felt her cheeks flush. "I am sorry. I did not mean to gossip." "You were not gossiping. You were curious, and you have a right to be, considering—" He trailed off, then started again. "I had a family once, a wife. Her name was Mary. We got married just before the war started, and I thought we would have a lifetime together. But I was called up to fight, and while I was gone, there was a fever that swept through her town. She died along with dozens of others, and I did not even find out until 3 months after it happened." "Oh, Cole," Catherine breathed, her heart breaking for him. "I am so sorry." He nodded, his jaw tight. "When the war ended, I had nothing to go back to. No family, no home, just a head full of memories and a future that looked like a blank wall. That is when I came west. I figured if I could not outrun the past, at least I could build something new in a place where no one knew what I had lost." Catherine reached out without thinking and placed her hand over his where it rested on the grass. "That takes incredible strength. Or incredible stubbornness," Cole said with a ghost of a smile. "I am not sure which." "Both, maybe," Catherine said. "But I understand now why you asked me those questions when we first met. You wanted to know if I was running away or running towards something." "Yes." He turned his hand over so their palms were touching, his fingers curling gently around hers. "I needed to know if you were just chasing a fantasy or if you were serious about building a real life here, because the West will chew you up and spit you out if you're not committed to it." "I am committed," Catherine said firmly. "I know I still have a lot to learn, but I'm not going back to Boston. There is nothing for me there. Everything I want is here." Cole's gray eyes searched hers, and she saw vulnerability in them that took her breath away. "What do you want, Catherine?" She could have deflected, could have given him a safe answer that would have maintained the careful distance they had been keeping. But in that moment, with his hand warm in hers and the sun filtering through the leaves above them, Catherine decided to take the same kind of risk he had taken in sharing his story with her. I want to keep teaching the children. I want to learn everything I can about this land and this life. And I want, she paused, gathering her courage. I want to know you better, Cole. I want to understand what makes you laugh and what keeps you awake at night. I want to be someone you trust enough to share your dreams with, not just your past. For a long moment, Cole did not move. Then slowly, he lifted his free hand and brushed a strand of hair back from her face, his touch impossibly gentle. You are the first person since Mary who has made me think about the future, instead of just getting through each day. That scares me, Catherine. I am not sure I know how to do this again. Neither do I, Catherine admitted. I have never felt like this before. Richard never made my heart race or my palms sweat. He never made me want to know everything about him, but you do. And it is terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Terrifying and wonderful, Cole repeated. And this time his smile was real and reached his eyes. That is a good way to describe it. They sat there under the cottonwood tree until the sun began to sink toward the horizon, talking about everything and nothing. Cole told her about his childhood in Virginia, about learning to ride before he could read, about the way his mother used to make apple pie that tasted like heaven. Catherine told him about her suffocating life in Boston, about the books that had been her escape, about the moment she had decided to board that westbound train and never look back. And with every word, every shared memory and secret dream, the connection between them deepened, shifting from attraction into something more profound. Catherine realized that she was falling for this quiet, strong man who had survived loss and hardship and come through it with his capacity for hope intact. And when Cole finally stood and offered her his hand to help her up, when he held onto her fingers just a moment longer than necessary, she knew he was falling too. I should walk you back to the house before Sarah starts to worry, Cole said, but there was reluctance in his voice. All right, Catherine agreed, though she was equally reluctant to end this moment. They walked side by side through the gathering dusk, not touching but acutely aware of each other. At the porch steps, Cole paused and turned to face her. Catherine, I am not a man who does things halfway. If we are going to do this, if we are going to see where this leads, I need you to know that I am serious. I am not looking for a passing fancy or a summer romance. I am looking for something real, something that lasts. Catherine's heart felt like it might burst. That is what I'm looking for too. He smiled then, a full, genuine smile that transformed his entire face, and Catherine felt herself falling even harder. Good. Then we will take this slow. Do it right. I will court you properly with Tom and Sarah as chaperones, and we will see where it goes. Is that acceptable to you? Very acceptable, Catherine said, feeling a joy she had never experienced before bubbling up inside her. Cole reached out and took her hand, raising it to his lips and pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Sleep well, Catherine Morrison. Sleep well, Cole Garrison. She watched him walk away toward the bunkhouse, and then floated into the house feeling like she was made of light and air. Sarah was sitting in the parlor with her mending, and when she looked up and saw Catherine's expression, she laughed softly. I take it you and Cole had a good talk. The best, Catherine said, unable to stop smiling. Sarah, is it possible to feel like your entire life just clicked into place? It is, Sarah said warmly, and I am happy for you, Catherine. You both deserve this. The next weeks unfolded like a dream. True to his word, Cole courted Catherine with an old-fashioned formality that she found both charming and deeply romantic. He would sit with her on the porch after dinner, always with Sarah or Tom nearby to maintain propriety, and they would talk until the stars came out. He brought her wildflowers he picked on his rides around the ranch, simple bouquets that meant more to her than the elaborate arrangements Richard used to send. He taught her to ride better, his patience infinite, as he helped her gain confidence in the saddle. And slowly, carefully, they learned each other. Catherine discovered that Cole had a dry sense of humor that emerged when he was comfortable, that he loved music even though he could not carry a tune, that he had a soft spot for injured animals and would go out of his way to help them. She learned that he woke before dawn every morning and liked to watch the sunrise while drinking his coffee, that he was fiercely loyal to the people he cared about, that his word was absolutely his bond. Cole, in turn, discovered that Catherine was braver than she gave herself credit for, that she had a gift for finding beauty in unexpected places, that she cried when she read sad passages in books and laughed with her whole body when something truly delighted her. He learned that she was stubborn when she believed she was right, that she had a fierce, protective streak when it came to the children, that she was still finding her way but never let fear stop her from trying. They also learned each other through small physical moments that carried enormous weight. The brush of shoulders when they stood side by side watching the sunset, Cole's hand at the small of her back as he helped her over rough ground, the way Catherine's fingers would rest on his arm when they walked together. Each touch was innocent, always mindful of propriety, but charged with a growing desire that neither of them tried to hide. One evening in mid-August, after a particularly grueling day during which Cole had helped Tom round up strays in the brutal heat, he came to dinner looking exhausted. Catherine watched with concern as he moved stiffly, clearly in pain though trying to hide it. After the meal, when everyone had dispersed to their evening activities, Catherine found Cole on the back porch, attempting to reach a spot between his shoulder blades that was clearly troubling him. "Let me help," Catherine said softly. Cole looked up, startled, and then nodded. "I pulled something earlier. It will be fine by morning." "Sit," Catherine ordered, pointing to a chair. When he complied, she moved behind him and carefully began to work the knotted muscles in his shoulders and upper back. She had learned basic massage techniques from her mother's housekeeper, who suffered from arthritis, and she applied them now with gentle firmness. Cole let out a low groan of relief. "That feels amazing." "You work too hard," Catherine said, continuing her ministrations. "You're going to wear yourself out," says the woman who teaches 3 children all morning and then helps Sarah all afternoon, Cole countered. But there was affection in his voice. They were silent for a while, the intimacy of the moment wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Catherine was acutely aware of the solid muscle beneath her hands, of the heat of his skin through the thin fabric of his shirt, of the way his breathing had slowed and deepened. When she finally finished and stepped back, Cole stood and turned to face her. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion that had nothing to do with physical pain. "You are welcome." Catherine's own voice was barely above a whisper. They stood there, inches apart, and Catherine could see the war happening in Cole's eyes. He wanted to kiss her. She knew that with absolute certainty. But he was holding himself back out of respect for propriety and his promise to do things right. The restraint must have cost him, because his hands were clenched at his sides and every line of his body was taut with tension. Catherine made the decision for both of them. She rose up on her toes and pressed a soft, brief kiss to his cheek, close enough to the corner of his mouth that it could not be mistaken for anything sisterly. "Good night, Cole." She turned and walked away before she could do something more reckless, but she heard his sharp intake of breath and felt his eyes on her until she disappeared into the house. Her heart was pounding and her entire body felt alive in a way it never had before. This was what she had been missing in Boston, this connection that went beyond social contracts and family expectations. This was real, and it was worth every risk she had taken to find it. September brought cooler temperatures and preparations for winter. The children returned to their studies with renewed focus after the lazy summer months, and Catherine found her teaching routine becoming more structured and ambitious. Emma was reading at a level far beyond her years, and Catherine began introducing her to more challenging texts. Jacob was finally starting to enjoy arithmetic when Catherine framed problems around ranch management and cattle drives. Lily was learning to write simple sentences and took enormous pride in showing her work to everyone who would look. But beyond the classroom, something else was building. The entire ranch could feel it, the way the air changes before a storm. Catherine and Cole were falling in love, and it was becoming impossible to hide or deny. One Sunday afternoon, Tom announced that he was taking the family into Santa Fe for a church service and social, and he invited Catherine and Cole to join them. Catherine accepted immediately, eager to see more of the town and meet some of the other families in the area. Cole was more reluctant, but Tom insisted, and eventually he agreed. The church was a beautiful old Spanish mission with thick adobe walls and wooden beams that had been there for over a century. The service was conducted in both English and Spanish, a reflection of the territory's mixed heritage, and Catherine found it moving in a way the stiff, formal services of Boston had never been. This felt more authentic, more connected to the land and the people who lived on it. After the service, there was a social gathering in the courtyard, with tables laden with food and children running everywhere. Sarah introduced Catherine to several other ranch wives, and Catherine found herself welcomed warmly into their circle. They asked about her teaching, about Boston, about how she was adjusting to life in New Mexico, and their curiosity felt genuine rather than intrusive. Meanwhile, Cole was standing with a group of men near one of the tables, clearly uncomfortable with the social aspect but handling it with his usual quiet competence. Catherine watched him from across the courtyard, admiring the way he held himself, the way he listened more than he talked, and the way he smiled at something Tom said. "That is a good man you have got there," one of the women said, following Catherine's gaze. Her name was Maria, and she ran a small ranch with her husband about 20 miles south. "Cole Garrison has a reputation for being honest and hardworking. My husband speaks very highly of him." "He is a good man," Catherine agreed, not bothering to correct the assumption that Cole was hers. It felt true, even if they had not spoken the words yet. "You two planning to marry soon?" another woman asked, and Catherine felt heat rise to her face. "We have not discussed that yet," she said carefully. "We are still getting to know each other." The women exchanged knowing looks, and Maria laughed. "Honey, the way you two look at each other, you already know everything that matters. The rest is just details." Catherine could not argue with that. The truth was, she did know everything that mattered. She knew that Cole was kind and honorable, that he would stand by his word no matter the cost, that he saw her as an equal partner rather than a possession. She knew that he challenged her to be stronger and braver, that he supported her dreams even when they scared him, that he made her laugh and think and feel more alive than she had ever felt before. Those were the things that mattered, and everything else really was just details. Later, as the sun began to set and families started loading into wagons for the ride home, Cole approached Catherine with a slightly mischievous expression that was unusual for him. "There's a dance next month," he said without preamble. "The town throws one every fall, right before the weather turns. Would you like to go with me?" Catherine's heart skipped. "As in together? Just the two of us?" "Well, the whole town will be there, so not exactly alone," Cole said with a hint of humor. "But yes, together. I would like to dance with you, Catherine, if you will have me." "I would love that," Catherine said, not caring that they were standing in full view of half the community. "I absolutely would love that." Cole's smile was reward enough, but then he did something unexpected. He reached out and took her hand, right there in front of everyone, and raised it to his lips for a kiss that lingered just long enough to make a statement. When he released her, Catherine could hear delighted whispers from the women who had been talking to her earlier, and she saw Tom and Sarah grinning at them from across the courtyard. "Let them talk," Cole said quietly. "I do not care who knows how I feel about you." "How do you feel about me?" Catherine asked, emboldened by his public display. Cole's expression grew serious. "Like I've been walking in the dark for years, and you are the first light I have seen. Like maybe the future does not have to be something I endure, but something I can actually look forward to. Like I might be falling in love with you, Catherine Morrison, and I am not sure I could stop it even if I wanted to." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "I do not want you to stop it, because I am falling in love with you too, Cole Garrison, and it is the best thing that has ever happened to me." They stood there, hands clasped, oblivious to the crowd around them, and Catherine felt something settle deep in her soul. This was what she had been searching for when she boarded that westbound train. Not just freedom from her old life, but freedom to choose a new one, to choose love and partnership and a future built on mutual respect and genuine affection. She had come west looking for something, and what she had found was standing right here in front of her, holding her hand and looking at her like she was the answer to every question he had ever asked. The weeks leading up to the dance passed in a flurry of excitement and anticipation. Sarah helped Catherine make a new dress for the occasion, a deep blue cotton that brought out her eyes and fit her figure in a way that was both modest and flattering. The children were fascinated by the preparations, especially Lily, who insisted on helping with every stitch and hem. "Are you going to marry Cole?" Emma asked one afternoon while they were working on lessons. Catherine looked up, startled by the direct question. "Why do you ask that?" "Because you look at each other the way Mama and Papa do," Emma said matter-of-factly. "And Jacob said he heard Papa telling Mama that Cole was going to ask you soon." "Did he now?" Catherine tried to keep her voice neutral, but her heart was racing. "Well, even if that is true, it would be something between Cole and me. But I will tell you this. I care about him very much, and I think he cares about me too." "I hope you do marry him," Lily piped up from where she was practicing her letters. "Then you would stay here forever and never leave us." Catherine felt a lump in her throat. "I am not planning to leave you, Lily. No matter what happens, you are stuck with me." But the truth was, Catherine had been thinking about marriage more and more. Not in the abstract way she had considered it with Richard, as a social obligation or economic arrangement, but as a genuine partnership with someone she loved and respected. She could imagine a life with Cole, waking up beside him every morning, building a home together, maybe even having children of their own someday. The thought filled her with a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but no fear. She was not afraid of committing to Cole. She was only afraid that something might happen to prevent it. The night of the dance arrived clear and cool. Perfect autumn weather. Catherine dressed carefully, her hands trembling slightly as she fastened the buttons on her new dress. Sarah came in to help with her hair, pinning it up in a style that was elegant but not too formal, leaving a few soft curls to frame her face. "You look beautiful," Sarah said warmly. "Cole is not going to know what hit him." Catherine laughed nervously. "I just want him to have a good time tonight. He does so much for everyone else. He deserves an evening to enjoy himself." "He will enjoy himself because he will be with you," Sarah said. "Trust me on that." When Catherine emerged from her room, Cole was waiting in the parlor with Tom, and the expression on his face when he saw her made all the preparation worthwhile. His eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed incapable of speech. Then he cleared his throat and said hoarsely, "You look stunning, Catherine." "You clean up pretty well yourself," Catherine replied, taking in his freshly pressed shirt and string tie. She had never seen him dressed up before, and the sight made her knees weak. The dance was held in a large barn on the outskirts of Santa Fe, decorated with lanterns and autumn branches. Music filled the air, provided by a fiddle, a guitar, and someone playing a squeeze box. The whole community seemed to have turned out, from young families with babies to elderly couples who had been married for 50 years. The atmosphere was festive and welcoming, with none of the stiff formality Catherine had endured at Boston social events. Cole led her onto the dance floor for the first waltz, and Catherine was surprised to discover that he was a good dancer, his movements confident and sure. "Where did you learn to dance?" she asked as they moved together. "My mother insisted on it," Cole said with a wry smile. "She said a gentleman should know how to conduct himself in any situation, including a ballroom. I hated the lessons at the time, but right now I am grateful for them." "So am I," Catherine said, allowing herself to relax into his lead. They danced 3 dances in a row before propriety demanded they separate and mingle with others. Catherine danced with Tom, with Margaret Hensley's husband, with several of the other ranchers she had met at church. But her eyes kept finding Cole across the room, and every time their gazes met, she felt that jolt of connection that seemed to grow stronger by the day. Finally, as the evening was winding down and the music shifted to slower, more intimate songs, Cole found her again. "One more dance?" he asked, offering his hand. "Yes," Catherine said without hesitation. This time, as they moved together, Cole pulled her slightly closer than was strictly proper. His hand at her waist felt possessive, protective, and Catherine rested her head against his shoulder, breathing in the scent of him, soap and leather, and something uniquely Cole. "Catherine," he said softly, his breath stirring her hair, "can we talk outside for a moment? There is something I need to say to you." Her heart started hammering, but she nodded. "Of course." They slipped out of the barn into the cool night air, walking a short distance away from the noise and light until they were standing alone under a canopy of stars that seemed close enough to touch. The moon was nearly full, painting everything in shades of silver and shadow, and Catherine thought she had never seen anything more beautiful than this moment. Cole took both her hands in his expression serious and tender at the same time. "I've been trying to find the right words for weeks, but the truth is there are no perfect words for what I feel, so I am just going to be honest." "I would not want anything else," Catherine said softly. "You came west looking for something," Cole said, his voice rough with emotion. "Looking for freedom, for a chance to be yourself, for a life that felt real instead of prescribed. I know that because I came looking for the same things. And what I found, what I never expected to find, was you." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but she did not interrupt. "You walked into my life and changed everything," Cole continued. "You made me remember what it feels like to hope, to dream about a future instead of just surviving each day. You made me want to be better, to build something lasting, to be the kind of man who deserves a woman like you." Catherine Morrison. "I am standing here tonight in front of God and these stars asking you to marry me. Not because it is expected or convenient, but because I love you with everything I am, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you every single day." For a moment, Catherine could not speak. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full. Then she found her voice, and the words came out clear and strong. "You came west looking for something, Cole Garrison, and I am hoping what you found is standing right here. Because I love you too. More than I ever thought possible. Yes, I will marry you. Yes, to building a life together. Yes, to everything." Cole's face transformed, joy lighting it from within, and then he was pulling her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. When he finally loosened his grip enough to look down at her, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I do not have a ring yet," he said apologetically. "I wanted to ask you first, make sure you would say yes before I spent money I did not have." "I do not need a ring," Catherine said, laughing through her own tears. "I just need you." But then Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, holding it up so the moonlight caught it. It was a simple silver band, not expensive or elaborate, but beautiful in its understated elegance. "I made this," he said quietly. "I have been working on it in the evenings trying to get it right. It is not much, but it is made with my own hands, and every strike of the hammer was a prayer that you would say yes." Catherine held out her left hand trembling, and watched as Cole slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as though it had been made for her because it had. "It is the most beautiful ring I have ever seen," she whispered. "Not half as beautiful as you," Cole replied. And then he was kissing her, gentle at first and then with growing passion. And Catherine kissed him back with all the love and hope and joy that was overflowing from her heart. This was right. So right it felt like coming home after a long journey. This was what she had been searching for, and she had found it in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected man. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably go back inside before people start talking." "Let them talk," Catherine said, echoing his words from the church social. "I do not care who knows that I am going to marry you." They walked back to the barn, hand in hand. And when they stepped through the door, Sarah took one look at Catherine's face and let out a whoop of joy that stopped the music and drew every eye in the room. "They are engaged," she announced, and the barn erupted in cheers and applause. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and well wishes. Everyone wanted to see the ring, to hear how Cole had proposed, to offer advice on wedding planning. Catherine felt overwhelmed by the warmth and acceptance of this community that had welcomed her so completely. These people, most of whom she had known for only a few months, were genuinely happy for her, and that happiness was a gift she had never received from Boston society. Later, as they rode back to the ranch in the wagon with the Henderson family, Catherine sat close to Cole, their hands linked beneath the blanket Sarah had insisted they take against the chill. The children were asleep in the back, exhausted from dancing and excitement, and Sarah and Tom were talking quietly up front, giving the newly engaged couple a measure of privacy. "When do you want to get married?" Cole asked softly. "I know women usually want time to plan, but I'm not sure how long I can wait." Catherine laughed quietly. "I do not need a big wedding. I just need you and maybe a few close friends and family. What about Thanksgiving? That gives us a couple of months to prepare, and it feels appropriate considering how much I have to be thankful for." "Thanksgiving sounds perfect," Cole agreed. "We can have the ceremony at the ranch if Tom and Sarah do not mind. They have been like family to me, and I would like them to be part of it." "I am sure they will be honored," Catherine said, "and Sarah will probably insist on cooking the wedding feast herself." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, and then Cole said, "I've been thinking about the future, about what comes after we are married. Tom offered to sell me some land on the northern edge of his property, about 200 acres. It is good grazing land, and there is water. I have been saving for years, and I almost have enough for the down payment. I thought, if you are agreeable, we could build a house there, start our own ranch. It would be small at first, but we could grow it over time." Catherine's heart swelled with pride and love. "You have been planning this." "I have been hoping for it," Cole corrected, "but I did not dare believe it was possible until you said yes tonight." "Then let us do it," Catherine said firmly. "Let us build something together from the ground up. Our own ranch, our own home, our own life. It sounds like a grand adventure." "It will be hard work," Cole warned. "There will be lean years and setbacks, but if we face them together, I know we can build something that lasts." "Together," Catherine agreed. "That is the important part. We will face everything together." The next 2 months were a whirlwind of preparation and planning. Sarah threw herself into organizing the wedding with enthusiastic energy, enlisting the help of the other ranch wives to prepare food and decorations. Catherine continued teaching the children, but now her lessons had a bittersweet edge because she knew that after the wedding she would be moving into the small house Cole was frantically building on their new land. And while she would still help with the children's education, it would not be the same as living with them every day. Emma seemed to understand this better than the younger two, and one afternoon she asked Catherine, "Will you be happy, living on your own ranch with Cole?" "Yes," Catherine said honestly. "I will miss seeing you every day, but I will be very happy, and you will visit us often, I hope." "Every week," Emma promised. "And when you have babies, I will help take care of them." Catherine felt her cheeks warm at the mention of babies, but she could not deny that she had been thinking about it. She wanted children with Cole, wanted to see his eyes reflected in a child's face, wanted to raise sons and daughters who would grow up knowing they were loved and valued for who they were, not who they were expected to be. Cole was working from dawn until long after dark, splitting his time between his duties at the Henderson Ranch and building their house. Catherine watched him push himself to exhaustion, and she worried. But when she tried to tell him to slow down, he just shook his head. "I want everything to be ready for you," he said. "I want to carry you across the threshold of a finished house, not a construction site." "I would not care if it was just 4 walls and a roof," Catherine insisted. "As long as you are there, it is home." But Cole was determined, and with help from Tom and some of the other ranchers, the house took shape with surprising speed. It was simple, but well built, with 2 rooms that could be expanded later, a stone fireplace, and large windows that let in plenty of light. Catherine visited the site whenever she could, watching their future take physical form, and each time she felt a surge of excitement so intense it almost frightened her. The week before the wedding, Cole took her to see the finished house. It was late afternoon, the sun casting everything in golden light, and when Catherine stepped through the door, she gasped. Cole had furnished it simply but thoughtfully, with a bed he had built himself, a table and chairs, a chest for storage. There were curtains at the windows, simple cotton but cheerful, and a colorful quilt on the bed that Sarah had made as a wedding present. "Cole, it is perfect," Catherine breathed, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "You really think so?" He sounded uncertain, almost shy. "I know it is not much, but it is ours." "It is ours," Catherine repeated, loving the sound of that word. "And it is everything I could have wanted." She walked to the window and looked out at the land stretching away toward the mountains in the distance. Their land, the place where they would build their life together. It felt surreal and wonderful at the same time. Cole came up behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, and Catherine leaned back against his solid warmth. "In 4 days you are going to be my wife," he said quietly. "I still cannot quite believe it." 4 days, Catherine echoed, "and then the rest of our lives." "The rest of our lives," Cole agreed, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "That sounds about right." Thanksgiving Day dawned clear and cold, perfect weather for a wedding. Catherine woke before sunrise, too excited and nervous to sleep, and found Sarah already up and working on the feast that would follow the ceremony. The 2 women worked together in companionable silence, preparing turkey and stuffing, pies and vegetables, and all the traditional dishes that would feed the 30 or so guests who had been invited. Around mid-morning, Sarah shooed Catherine out of the kitchen and up to her room to begin getting ready. The dress Sarah had helped her make hung on the wardrobe door, a simple but elegant design in cream-colored wool that would be warm enough for the November chill. Catherine bathed and dressed slowly, her hands shaking slightly as she fastened the buttons. This was really happening. In a few hours she would be Catherine Garrison, wife of the man she loved, embarking on a new life that she had chosen for herself. Sarah came in to help with her hair, pinning it up with a few white ribbons woven through. "You look like an angel," she said softly. "Cole is not going to be able to take his eyes off you." "I hope not," Catherine said with a nervous laugh. "I feel like I might faint from nerves." "That is normal," Sarah assured her. "I was so nervous on my wedding day I could barely speak during the ceremony. But the moment Tom took my hand, everything else fell away and it was just the 2 of us. It will be the same for you and Cole." She was right. When Catherine walked out of the house on Tom's arm, since he had offered to give her away in the absence of her own father, and saw Cole standing beneath an archway decorated with pine branches and ribbons, all her nervousness evaporated. He looked heartbreakingly handsome in a new shirt and vest, his hair neatly combed, his gray eyes fixed on her with such love and intensity that she felt it like a physical touch. The ceremony was performed by a traveling preacher who made the circuit through the territory, and it was simple and heartfelt. Cole's voice was steady as he spoke his vows, promising to love and cherish Catherine for the rest of his days, and Catherine's voice was equally steady as she made the same promises to him. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes, and the assembled guests erupted in applause and cheers. The feast that followed was loud and joyous, with everyone eating and drinking and celebrating the union of 2 people who had found each other against all odds. Catherine moved through the day in a happy daze, accepting congratulations, dancing with Cole and Tom and several other men, laughing at jokes and stories. But through it all, she was aware of Cole's presence, of the way his eyes followed her around the room, of the way he smiled every time their gazes met. Finally, as the afternoon faded into evening and the guests began to depart, Cole took Catherine's hand and led her to the wagon he had prepared. Their belongings had already been moved to the new house, and now it was time to begin their life together in earnest. The short ride to their property felt simultaneously too long and too short. Catherine's heart was pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She was a married woman now, and tonight she would share a bed with her husband for the first time. Her mother had given her the vaguest of explanations about marital duties before she left Boston, and Sarah had been slightly more forthcoming, but Catherine still felt woefully unprepared for what was to come. As if sensing her tension, Cole reached over and took her hand. "We do not have to do anything you are not ready for," he said quietly, "tonight or any night. I will wait as long as you need." Catherine looked at him, at the honesty and patience in his face, and felt her nervousness ease. "I am ready," she said. "Maybe a little scared, but ready." "I trust you, Cole." "I will be gentle, Key," he promised. "I will take care of you." When they arrived at the house, Cole did indeed carry her across the threshold, and Catherine laughed with pure joy as he spun her around in the center of their small home. He set her down carefully, his hands lingering at her waist, and for a moment they just looked at each other, the weight of what they had done, what they were about to do, hanging in the air between them. "Hello, wife," Cole said softly. "Hello, husband," Catherine replied, and then she was kissing him, all her love and desire pouring into the connection between them. What followed was tender and sweet and occasionally awkward, as first times often are, but it was also deeply intimate and bonding. Cole was patient and gentle, just as he had promised, guiding Catherine through the newness of physical love with care and attention to her comfort. And when it was over, when they lay tangled together in their marriage bed, with moonlight streaming through the window, Catherine felt a completeness she had never known before. "I love you," she whispered, her head resting on Cole's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I love you too," Cole replied, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "More than I ever thought possible. You are my whole world, Catherine." They lay like that for a long time, talking softly about their hopes and dreams for the future, about the ranch they would build, about the children they hoped to have someday, about growing old together in this place they had chosen. And as Catherine finally drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, she thought about how far she had come from that suffocating life in Boston, and how grateful she was that she had been brave enough to board that westbound train. She had come west looking for something, and what she had found was everything. The first winter as a married couple tested them in ways Catherine had not anticipated. The work was relentless, caring for the small herd of cattle they had purchased with their combined savings, maintaining the house and outbuildings, preparing for the harsh weather that came with living at this elevation. There were days when Catherine's hands were so cold she could barely feel them, when exhaustion made her want to cry, when she wondered if she had been naive to think she could handle this life. But there were also moments of profound joy, waking up next to Cole every morning, his warmth a shield against the cold, working alongside him to feed the animals or mend fences, their breath misting in the frigid air, sitting by the fire in the evenings reading aloud while he carved or mended tack, making love under piles of quilts, their passion keeping them warm even when snow piled high outside. And through it all, Cole was her rock, her partner in every sense of the word. He never treated her as though she were fragile or incapable. When she struggled with a task, he showed her how to do it better rather than taking over. When she succeeded at something difficult, he celebrated with genuine pride. They were building this life together, equally invested, equally responsible, and that equality made all the difference. Christmas came, and they spent it quietly at their own home, though they visited the Hendersons on Christmas Eve to exchange gifts and share a meal. Catherine gave Cole a thick wool coat she had sewn herself, working on it late at night when he was asleep. He gave her a beautiful leather-bound journal and a promise to teach her everything he knew about running a ranch. It was perfect. As winter gave way to spring, the ranch began to come alive. Calves were born, requiring round-the-clock attention. The vegetable garden Catherine had planned needed to be planted. Repairs that had been put off during the coldest months needed to be addressed. They hired a young man named Miguel to help with the heaviest work, and his presence eased some of the burden, but there was still more to do than hours in the day. One evening in early April, Catherine realized that she had missed her monthly courses. She sat at the table, her hand pressed to her still flat stomach, and felt a mixture of joy and terror wash over her. She was almost certainly pregnant, which meant they would have a baby by the end of the year. A child. Their child. The future they had talked about in abstract terms was suddenly terrifyingly real. When Cole came in from the barn, he took one look at her face and crossed the room immediately. "What is wrong? Are you hurt?" "No," Catherine said, her voice shaking. "I am not hurt. I am just... Cole, I think I'm going to have a baby." For a moment he did not react. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen, and he was pulling her into his arms, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. "A baby! Catherine, are you sure?" "Pretty sure," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "I have missed my courses, and I have been feeling strange in the mornings. I think it happened back in February." Cole set her down gently, his hands coming to rest on her stomach with a reverence that made her heart ache. "A baby," he repeated, wonder in his voice. "We are going to be parents." "Are you happy?" Catherine asked, needing to hear him say it. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," Cole said fiercely. "I am terrified and thrilled and so grateful I do not even have words. This is everything I never let myself hope for, and you gave it to me. You gave me a life worth living, Catherine, and now you are giving me a family. How could I be anything but happy?" They held each other for a long time, marveling at the miracle growing inside her, talking about names and nurseries and all the ways their life was about to change. And when they finally went to bed that night, Cole held her with extra care as though she were made of glass, and whispered promises to her and to their unborn child about the life he would work to provide for them. The pregnancy progressed normally, though Catherine found the work of the ranch increasingly difficult as her belly grew. Cole and Miguel took on more of the physical labor, and Sarah came to visit often, bringing food and advice and companionship. The children were fascinated by Catherine's expanding waistline, especially Lily, who liked to press her ear to Catherine's stomach and claim she could hear the baby talking. As summer turned to autumn, Catherine grew huge and uncomfortable, waddling more than walking, unable to sleep comfortably no matter how many pillows Cole arranged for her. But she had never been happier. Despite the physical discomfort, despite the nervousness about the birth, she felt fulfilled in a way that had nothing to do with external validation and everything to do with the life she had built with her own hands and choices. In late November, just after the first anniversary of their wedding, Catherine went into labor. It was a long, difficult birth, lasting through an entire day and night, and there were moments when Cole paced the kitchen in terror while Sarah and Maria, who had experience as a midwife, worked with Catherine in the bedroom. But finally, just as dawn was breaking on the second day, Catherine delivered a healthy baby boy with a loud cry that proclaimed his arrival to the world. Cole was allowed into the room once Catherine had been cleaned up and the baby swaddled, and when Sarah placed his son in his arms, the expression on his face was one Catherine would remember for the rest of her life. Awe and love and fierce protectiveness all mixed together, tears streaming down his cheeks as he looked at the tiny person they had created. "He is perfect," Cole breathed. "Absolutely perfect. What should we name him?" They had discussed names for months without reaching a firm decision, but now, looking at her husband holding their son, Catherine knew. "Thomas," she said. "After your father and Tom Henderson, Thomas Cole Garrison." "Thomas," Cole repeated, testing the name. "I like it." "Welcome to the world, Thomas. Your mother and I are going to do our best by you, I promise." He leaned down to kiss Catherine, gentle and reverent, and she tasted salt from his tears. "You did amazing," he whispered. "You are so strong. I am in awe of you." "We did it together," Catherine said, exhausted but happy. "Everything we do together." The first months with the newborn were exhausting in ways Catherine had not imagined. Thomas was a colicky baby, crying for hours at a time despite their best efforts to soothe him. Catherine walked endless circles around the house, rocking and singing and trying not to cry herself from sheer exhaustion. Cole took over as much of the ranch work as he could, but there were some things that required Catherine's attention, and she learned to function on very little sleep. But there were also moments of transcendent beauty. The first time Thomas smiled at her, a real smile and not just gas. The way Cole would talk to his son in a soft, tender voice she had never heard him use before. Watching father and son together, seeing the bond forming between them. These moments made all the exhaustion worthwhile. By the time spring arrived and Thomas was 4 months old, they had found a rhythm. Catherine was still teaching the Henderson children twice a week, bringing Thomas with her, and she had started helping Sarah with plans for a small school that would serve the ranching families in the area. Cole had expanded their herd and was talking about buying more land. They were thriving, not just surviving, and Catherine felt proud of what they had accomplished. One evening in early May, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset while Thomas nursed, Cole said, "I've been thinking about the future." "That sounds ominous," Catherine teased. "Not ominous, just big," Cole said. "I want more children with you if you're willing. I want to expand the ranch, build a bigger house, maybe even start breeding horses in addition to cattle. I want to be part of that school you and Sarah are planning. Make sure all the children in this area get a good education. I want to build something lasting, Catherine, something that will outlive us and benefit this whole community." Catherine felt her heart swell with love for this man who dreamed so big after having lost so much. "I want all of that too. More children, a bigger house, contributing to the community. We will build it together, one day at a time." "Together," Cole agreed, reaching over to take her hand. "Always together." The years that followed were full of hard work and growth. Catherine gave birth to 2 more children. A daughter they named Sarah Margaret in honor of the 2 women who had been such important figures in their lives, and then another son they called Daniel. The ranch prospered, growing from their initial 200 acres to over 1,000, with cattle and horses that were known throughout the territory for their quality. Catherine helped establish the school she and Sarah had envisioned, teaching there 3 days a week once her children were old enough. She discovered that she loved working with all the ranch children, watching them develop and learn, knowing that she was giving them tools that would serve them for the rest of their lives. Cole became a respected figure in the community, known for his honesty and fairness. Other ranchers sought his advice, and he served on various committees that helped govern the growing territory. He built the bigger house he had promised, with enough room for their growing family and for the guests they often hosted. But more than any external success, what mattered most to both of them was the family they had created together. Their home was filled with laughter and love, with children's voices and the mess of daily living. Catherine and Cole made a point of spending time together, just the 2 of them, whether that was early morning rides before the children woke or quiet evenings on the porch after they had gone to bed. They never took each other for granted, never stopped appreciating the miracle of having found each other. One evening, nearly 10 years after Catherine had first arrived in Santa Fe, she and Cole were sitting in their favorite spot on the porch, watching their children play in the yard. Thomas was 12 now, already showing signs of becoming as tall as his father. Sarah was 8, smart and independent, with her mother's determination and her father's quiet strength. Daniel was 6, all energy and mischief, keeping everyone on their toes. "Do you ever miss Boston?" Cole asked, breaking a comfortable silence. Catherine considered the question seriously, as she always did when Cole asked her something. "I miss my parents sometimes, though we write regularly. But miss the life I had there? No, not even a little. Everything I want, everything I need is right here. Even though it has been hard, even though there have been lean years and sick children and all the struggles we have faced." "Especially because of all that," Catherine said firmly. "Those struggles made us stronger. They proved that we can handle whatever life throws at us as long as we face it together. And the joys have been so much sweeter because we earned them." Cole smiled and pulled her closer, his arm around her shoulders. "I used to think my life was over when Mary died. I thought the best I could hope for was to get through each day without falling apart. And then you showed up. This proper Boston lady who had no business being out here but was too stubborn to admit it." "I had plenty of business being here," Catherine protested, but she was smiling. "You did," Cole agreed. "You just did not know it yet. And you changed my life, Catherine. You gave me back my future. You gave me love and family and purpose. You gave me everything." "You gave me the same," Catherine said softly. "I came west looking for something I could not even name. I was looking for freedom, for purpose, for a life that felt authentic. And what I found was so much more than that. I found you. I found love. I found myself." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the sun sank below the horizon and the first stars began to appear. Inside the house, Catherine could hear Sarah helping Daniel with his reading, her patient voice guiding her younger brother through the words. Thomas was probably in the barn, checking on the new foal that had been born last week. Everything was as it should be. "You came west looking for something," Cole said, echoing the words he had spoken the night he proposed, so many years ago. "And what you found is standing right here, still grateful every single day that you chose me." "What I found," Catherine corrected gently, "is standing here, sitting beside me, playing in the yard, sleeping in the house. What I found is a whole life, Cole. A life I chose for myself, built with my own hands and my own decisions. And the best part of that life, the very center of it, is you." Cole turned to her, his gray eyes still as intense as they had been that first day in the trading post, and kissed her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. After all these years, after all they had been through together, he could still make her feel like the most cherished woman in the world. "I love you, Catherine Garrison," he said against her lips. "I love you, Cole Garrison," she replied. "Today, tomorrow, and always." As the stars brightened overhead and their children's laughter echoed from the house, Catherine reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had left Boston as a frightened young woman running from a life she did not want, with nothing but hope and determination to sustain her. She had arrived in New Mexico uncertain of what she would find, knowing only that she needed to change her life, and change it she had. She had found work that fulfilled her, a community that embraced her, and most importantly, a man who loved her exactly as she was while challenging her to become even better. Together, she and Cole had built something real and lasting, a legacy that would extend far beyond their own lives. Their ranch was now one of the most successful in the territory, but that success was measured not just in acres and livestock, but in the family they had raised, the community they had helped build, and the love that had sustained them through every trial and triumph. Catherine's school had expanded to serve over 30 children from surrounding ranches, giving them opportunities their parents had never had. Cole's reputation for fairness and integrity had made him a leader in the community, someone people turned to when they needed wisdom or help. But beyond all the external achievements, what mattered most was the life they shared, the quiet moments of intimacy that still made Catherine's pulse race, the way they could communicate with just a glance after so many years together, the satisfaction of working side by side toward common goals, the joy of watching their children grow and thrive. These were the riches that truly mattered, and Catherine knew she was wealthy beyond measure. As they finally rose from the porch and headed inside to put the children to bed, Catherine paused at the door and looked back at the land stretching away into darkness. This was her home, chosen and built and earned. This was her life, full of love and purpose and meaning. She had come west looking for something, and she had found everything. Years continued to pass, bringing new challenges and new joys. Thomas grew into a fine young man who decided to study law, heading east to attend school with his parents' full support. Sarah showed a talent for animal husbandry and took over the horse breeding program, expanding it in ways that brought recognition from across the territory. Daniel proved to be a natural rancher, happiest when he was working the land alongside his father. Catherine and Cole grew older together, their hair turning gray, their bodies showing the effects of decades of hard work. But they never lost the essential connection that had drawn them together that first summer. They still made time for each other, still surprised each other with small gestures of love, still fell asleep in each other's arms most nights. One evening, when Catherine was in her 50s and Cole was approaching 60, they rode out to a favorite spot on their land, a high ridge that offered views of the entire valley. They dismounted and sat on a flat rock, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "Do you remember the night I proposed?" Cole asked, his arm around Catherine's waist. "Of course," Catherine said, leaning into him. "You were so nervous and so earnest. You said I had come west looking for something, and you hoped what I had found was standing there with you." "Best decision I ever made," Cole said, "asking you to marry me. You've made every day since then worth living." "You did the same for me," Catherine said. "I was so lost when I arrived here, Cole. I knew what I did not want, but I had no idea what I did want. And then I met you, and everything became clear. You were what I had been searching for, even though I did not know it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the sun sank lower and the shadows lengthened. Catherine thought about all the years they had shared, all the challenges they had overcome, all the love they had given and received. It had not always been easy. There had been droughts that threatened their livelihood, illnesses that scared them terribly, moments when they disagreed and had to work through conflict. But they had faced everything together, and their partnership had only grown stronger with time. "I want you to know," Cole said suddenly, his voice thick with emotion, "that loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. Every morning I wake up grateful that you chose me, that you built this life with me. You took a broken man and made him whole again, Catherine. You gave me a reason to hope when I had none. I do not know what I did to deserve you, but I will be thankful for you until my last breath." Catherine felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "You gave me the same gift, Cole. You saw me, really saw me, when everyone else in my life just saw a role they wanted me to fill. You supported my dreams, celebrated my strengths, and loved me through my weaknesses. You made me brave enough to become the person I was always meant to be. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." They held each other as the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life that exceeded their wildest dreams. Their story was not a fairy tale with a perfect ending, but something better. A real love story, full of struggle and growth, setbacks and triumphs, ordinary moments, and extraordinary commitment. As they finally mounted their horses and headed back to the ranch house, where their children and now grandchildren were gathering for a family dinner, Catherine felt a deep sense of peace. She had made the right choice all those years ago when she boarded that westbound train. She had been brave enough to leave behind everything familiar in search of something more, and she had found it in the most unexpected place. She had come west looking for freedom, and she had found love. She had come looking for purpose, and she had found family. She had come looking for herself, and she had found a partner who helped her become more than she ever could have been alone. The ranch house came into view, lights glowing in the windows, voices carrying on the evening air. This was her legacy, built with her own hands and her own choices, rooted in the love she shared with the man riding beside her. It was not what she had imagined when she left Boston all those years ago, but it was so much better. Catherine Garrison had come west looking for something, and what she had found was a whole life, rich and full and deeply satisfying. And at the center of it all was Cole, her partner, her love, her home. Together they had built something that would last long after they were gone, a testament to the power of taking risks, choosing love, and never giving up on the dream of a life worth living. As they dismounted in front of the house and walked hand in hand toward the door, toward the noise and warmth and love waiting inside, Catherine thought once more about that frightened young woman who had stepped off the stagecoach in Santa Fe so many years ago. If she could travel back in time and tell that woman what her future held, she would say only this: be brave. Take the risk. Trust that you will find what you are looking for, even if you do not know what it is yet. And most importantly, when you meet a gray-eyed cowboy who looks at you like you are the answer to every question he has ever asked, do not run away, because he is going to change your life in the best possible way, and together you are going to build something beautiful. The door opened, and Sarah called out, "Mama, Papa, hurry up. Dinner is getting cold." Catherine and Cole exchanged a smile and walked inside together, into the warmth and light and love they had created, into the life they had chosen and built and earned. It was everything they had dreamed of and more. It was home.